The set date is June 5, tomorrow, Friday. Transportation Secretary Tugade said the resumption of domestic commercial flights has been approved by the National Task Force against COVID-19 Chief Implementer Carlito Galvez Jr. But flights will only be limited to areas under General Community Quarantine or GCQ. Still, Tugade stressed that local government units must provide support for the resumption of domestic flights in their areas of jurisdiction. In an interview here on Agenda yesterday, Cebu Pacific and Air Asia disclosed that they are now talking with LGUs to clarify the new normal guidelines as they resume operations. Defense Secretary Lorenzana, on the other hand, on a different story, assured the Filipinos that protesters are not terrorists, as he allayed fears over the controversial anti-terror bill. Lorenzana said that peaceful protests and peaceful assembly are enshrined in the Constitution and protected by the Bill of Rights. He also said that there are enough safeguards in the bill to protect the public. The anti-terror bill has met opposition, even online, as it has been approved by both chambers of Congress and is now awaiting President Duterte's signature. Yesterday, the lower house voted 173 against 31 in support of the bill, with 31 abstentions. The Senate version of the bill was passed last February. Senators welcomed Malacanang's move to suspend the termination of the Visiting Forces Agreement, or VFA, between the Philippines and United States. Okay, the upper chamber is pressing for a review of the military pact. Senate President Tito Soto said the pending issue in the Supreme Court remains, and they will still ask the SC or the Supreme Court whether or not the abrogation of the pact must have the concurrence of the Senate. Soto was referring to a petition filed before the Senate last March, which says that under the Constitution, the executive branch must seek the concurrence of the chamber before any changes can take effect on the international agreement. I am not sure about that, ladies and gentlemen. I think the petition was filed before the Supreme Court, but we will all check on that. And finally, education officials have asked lawmakers more funds as they seek to launch support programs in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. The exact budget has yet to be released, but Education Undersecretary Jess Mateo said they will need an increase in budget to implement the shift to distance learning. Some of the changes DepEd has to make are hiring more personnel, training the teachers, and providing them with blended learning equipment such as laptops. Mateo also cited the need to tap healthcare professionals in schools to ensure the physical and mental well-being of teachers and students. Okay, and I believe that is the final story from the front page of the Philippine Star. And just reacting to those news articles, it's I kind of wonder about what's going on, because while we all want normalcy in our lives, we want education to carry on, we want the children to carry on with their schooling, it is becoming clear just by the fact that the DepEd is only now sounding off the Congress and the executive, the legislative and the executive, that they need money. They're going to need money for all the things they need for the kids, for the schools, for the teachers. So we don't have the actual system in place. And that's what we were saying here, or I was saying here on Agenda, that it might be better to just have a timeout, a gap, one SEM or 1 year for the kids who can carry on with different forms of activities, educational activities, while we grown-ups, presumably we grown-ups, are trying to fix the system so that they can carry on. But that's another bag of issues. We'll talk about that later. For now, let's go to our first interview. Let's speak with the chairperson of the Judicial Reform Initiative, Sherisa NUESA. Okay, and for those of you, good morning, Sherisa.
Good morning and magandang umaga din sa iyong viewers and all your guests, Sito.
Okay, I did not have a chance to read the joint statement on rule of law in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. But I have the copy here para naman do sa mga nagsasabi, baka wala na akong ginawa kung hindi mag-complain o bumanat. Hindi po ako ang nag-issue nitong statement na ito. The statement is on behalf of the American Chamber, the Canadian Chamber, Phoenix, the Institute of Corporate Directors, the Institute for Solidarity in Asia, the Judicial Reform Institute, the Management Association of the Philippines, and the Makati Business Club. And in short, I believe the statement is calling for government to apply the rule of law equally. Would you care to expound on this and tell our viewers what's going on, Sherisa?
Okay, Sito. Well, as you said, Judicial Reform Initiative is a multi-organization advocacy group. And we consider ourselves as the principal voice of business in advocating for a more effective and efficient judicial system. So that covers not only the courts, but also the prosecutorial systems. And you can imagine that in this pandemic, even earlier on, we were discussing about the challenges posed by our overcrowded detention facilities, wherein the PDLs or persons deprived of liberty are at greater risk. So you can imagine that with the lockdown of Luzon, so much suffering, businesses were obviously hurting, people could not even go out. So there was freedom of movement was restricted. People couldn't even mourn for some of their departed loved ones in their usual traditions. And with all of these difficulties and sacrifice that we were called upon to do, amidst all of that, and we hear about public officials violating quarantine protocols, including law enforcement officials. And by the way, just to complete, as you might have read about this, as of just a month after the lockdown, that's April 17, some 30,000 arrests were already made. And as of May, that has risen to about 40,000, some 6,000 are under inquest. And 23,000 at that time, mid-April, the 23,000 cases were for filing. So we thought we should call upon the leadership because, by the way, governance is really something that is a very strong theme these days. So we felt that we should call on everyone to set the highest standards in terms of adherence to and respect for the rule of law as an anchor of our moral order and, of course, our democratic institutions.
That's interesting because when you think about it, most stories that came out representing business, the business sector, and the business interest, the stories that came out were, business is asking for bailout, asking for stimulus package, asking for a shift from ECQ to GCQ or whatever. We didn't, and I, for one, didn't pick up this story regarding the business sector calling for an equal application of the law. I think we don't have to play games here, or let's not play coy. I think what really got everybody's goat was how Debold Sinas, Police Brigadier General Debold Sinas, got a slap on the wrist, while a lot of poor people ended up in jail. But why did the various chambers and directors and associations react to this?
Well, Sito, since 2012, we have been advocating the rule of law because, as you know, that's very important even in the business environment. Now,
Mhm.
we know that we need foreign and local investments. That has been again expounded on, and we need that to further strengthen the economy. And of course, the international community is calling upon us to demonstrate that we value the rule of law, because otherwise how will they protect not only their business interests but even their personal presence here, right? So it
Yeah.
is something that we have been advocating for a long time, as I said, since 2012. And that's why it's a multi business organizations. Although we do have also the group of Tesi Angsi, the Movement for Restoration of Peace and Order, as part of the group. And we have always talked about rule of law, the strength of institutions, even as we discuss what we call economic justice, no? Things like the use of alternative dispute resolution, etc. So, but it is in general, we think that law and justice is a very important foundation of our economic progress, our general economic environment, and that includes also the international community, our reputation before these international investors. So that is something that our JRI has stood for a long time already.
Well, I guess it's valid, or it's validated by what's happening in the United States. In the United States, for the longest time, law enforcers have gotten away with particular issues or cases, which is now referred to as racial discrimination or racism. And when the law is only applied to one segment of society and not to the whole segment of society, particularly the law enforcers, then it could lead or pile up and ultimately become a source of conflict of the society itself. I mean, no one's calling it, but I think they practically have a civil war in the U.S. And the your point being, if we don't apply the law, then we don't get respect from the international investors, and we don't get respect from the local citizenry. Now, uh, okay, it's good for you to call out the need for equal justice, equal enforcement of the law, but how far are you going as far as the Bolsinas got a slap on the wrist, charges will be filed against him, he's under investigation. So the court, it's really up to the court and the PNP to settle that matter judiciously. Now, what about those poor people? Many of them are former employees, workers, laborers who ended up in jail. Those 40,000 arrested. What's the situation there? Are the chambers doing something for them, or is the your group doing something?
That's another concern, people, because remember, as we said, it is rule of law and justice. So as early as April 13, the same organization, our JRI, wrote a letter to the Supreme Court and the Department of Justice, of course, Justice Diosdado Peralta and the DOJ Secretary Menardo Guevara. And in that letter, we requested for a review of the cases of individuals or groups that can already be released given the state of our jail facilities. No less than the Bureau of Jail and Management in as of April, as of April 2018, actually said that the overcrowding rate in our jail facilities is something like close to 600%. Now, there was a more updated number, but this came from an outside organization, a London based group. And World Prisons Brief, as I recall it, and they said it's 450%. But whether it's 450% or 600%, that's a terrible situation to be in. And so what we said was to do a review. Well, now, obviously, we said that there are low risk infractions, petty crimes. Actually, there are minors in detention. And what we asked for is that we review these cases and we invoke also the law, apply the law. After all, there are laws already for self-recognizance or home detention or a more humanitarian approach. But we did not, of course, we also were very specific that we did not mean crimes of corruption, violence, and drug-related, those that are more very serious cases. So what we said was to review these cases and specifically for one very laudable program of the Supreme Court, which started way back. This is what they call enhanced justice on wheels. And under this program, pre-trial prisoners who have already served their jail sentence, the equivalent of jail sentence of their crime, had they been convicted, because these are people who have not even been convicted, those people should already be immediately released. So
Okay,
we're
are they released without any criminal record? I'm just curious. Sorry,
yeah,
just a weird question there.
well, I think that they will still have the record, unfortunately. But remember, some of these are pre-trial prisoners. And
Yeah.
in fairness to the Supreme Court, there was a relatively prompt letter, of course, that was immediately sent by the Chief Justice. And his reply was that there were in fact a number of issuances already during this time of the pandemic. For one, there was an OCA, Office of the Court Administrator circular taking an inventory of cases to find out exactly who are those that could possibly entitled to an earlier release. And then what was interesting also is that they reinforced video conferencing. This is something that our people should know, that they can already apply online for bail, and that video conferencing is encouraged and is pilot tested in many courts. And what is most interesting to us was the Supreme Court Circular 38-2020, which is actually even released after the Supreme Court wrote to us. And in that particular circular, the Supreme Court cited a constitutionally mandated right to bail of citizens. So they should know that they have this right to bail. And in that same circular, there was an instruction from the Supreme Court to reduce bail in order to, of course, respond to the most vulnerable, and also um, to reduce bail, and also to reinforce using recognizance as a ground for early release of the persons under detention. So those are very, very helpful. I think your viewers would want to know that they have all these rights, that they can file online. As you can imagine, they must have thought, with all the courts closed, how do I pay my
Yeah.
bail? And what are the options if I could not afford it? So I think that they should know that yes, there is recognizance as an alternative, and that the bills could be done online and have been actually reduced by that circular. So we thank
Okay.
the Supreme Court for that.
Yeah. Sharisa, I'm just wondering. I don't think it was easy for 8 major organizations to come out with a statement like that. Uh, it must have taken some doing, or were they really concerned about that the bold Cena's case to the point that they would come out with a statement? How did that happen?
Well, actually, it was a matter of a few days, as we thought, and perhaps, well, when we started it, probably in a matter of 3, 4, 5 days, the statement came out. Because remember, the organizations now do a lot of collaboration together. Never has it never have we felt that we needed partnership and collaboration among the business organizations themselves. And when we are already seeing that there was that kind of an outcry, we talked about being disappointed, dismay. Some talked about a sense of betrayal on what happened. So it was easy to put together uh, call to our leadership to provide that kind of the standards in respect for the rule of law. So you can imagine that it was relatively fast actually because that was the sentiment of the people already that something has to be done. And we know that a lot of our leaders did not want what was happening also. Remember, some men in uniform called out the law enforcers. So I think it's a good thing for for people to know that the public is feeling this, that there is this demand for call to leadership and governance at this time, so that
And
everybody we are in this together.
well, it's also good to hear that the business sector is not just thinking money, thinking survival, or thinking stimulus, that you're also thinking and talking about principles. Now, allow me to take it outside of the ballpark, so to speak. What is the sentiments, or what are the sentiments of your associates regarding the quarantine measures, regarding our state of affairs? Because I, for one, am trying to get answers from government. What's the plan? Because as you and I know, the idea for ECQ, GCQ, and all sorts of quarantine is for our health sector to be able to ram up their ability to deal with this disease, to treat patients, and to make sure that the hospitals are not overrun. But we've gone way past that. But no one is talking about schedules, deadlines, or a actual plan. What are you guys talking about?
Well, we realize that it's a complex matter. I guess when it comes to actual assessment, it is best to leave that to the experts after we give the health experts, for instance, after some time, because as you know, we just are on day 4 of the GCQ. But of course, we felt that the lockdown initially was necessary, given that we are a developing country. Our health facilities are not as advanced, and therefore that ECQ had to happen. On the side of economic measures, that's happening as well. So we are seeing more of the stimulus packages as announced by the economic team. We saw also the BSP responding relative to the policy rate and the reduction of reserve requirements. So I guess it's a total thing. First, of course, we have to look at the economic and fiscal measures, but at the same time, if you're asking for total assessments, including the health and medical, I think let's give it a little time and look at the statistics, because as you know, as more tests are happening, as more assessments are coming in, we will see the different data. And so I guess that's what we can give them a little bit more time.
Okay, I'll ask a question that your side of the fence can answer. What about jobs? Because I've got people now who are asking me how many percent of the jobs are going to disappear. You've got 8 members in your group, or 8 organizations coordinating. What are you guys talking about in terms of job losses? Are we talking about a 30% job loss, a 50% job loss in the next 6 months?
Well, we're hoping that won't happen, Sito. In fact, they're saying that it's from 5, possibly 10%. We don't know at this point. But it depends on how strong the economic measures, the stimulus packages will be. But thankfully, because we started out with strong economic fundamentals, our economy can absorb more of additional debt, additional stimulus packages. I think these are already being discussed. So we're hoping that it will be better than what the more pessimistic forecasts are saying. This is really the time for governance and leadership, Sito. This is what we're saying. We should all work on this together because I'm also on the board of the Institute of Corporate Directors, and we are really told that this is the time for governance, for stewardship, for people to work together in a collaborative fashion. And that's why we were talking about the whole of society approach, meaning let's collaborate all various sectors.
Yeah.
It's such a
But Sharisa, sorry to cut in, but
sure.
I've been interviewing a lot of people, and that seems to be the core problem right now. There are thousands of experts in the private sector who are just waiting to be consulted, but the IATF, the executive department, seems to be intent on rowing the boat and running the offensive by themselves.
So far, I guess because my involvement is largely on the business side, like Phoenix, MEP, we see a lot of dialogues actually. In fact, sometimes there are just too many webinars, Sito, and we are in discussion. I think you're following also that we have also been in discussion, and the business sector is recommending a stronger package of measures to really boost the economy. And this is where I guess that trust that has to be built, that as there is greater trust between all amongst all the citizens, between private sector and government, then we really could collaborate. So I would
Okay.
we are in
Who in government? So at least so we give credit where credit is due. Which part of government or what department in government is actually engaged with the private sector? Because I spoke to health experts and they said, as far as the DOH is concerned or the secretary, there is no real collaboration, or at least that's what a couple of ex-secretaries told me. You're in business. Who in government is actually doing all those webinars and all those consultations? I assume that would be DTI because they're really active.
DOF, DSP. Actually, we've been talking. NEDA, the new secretary, Carl Chua,
Mhm. Yeah.
the Secretary Dominguez, BSP, Secretary Diokno. We actually invited them to various fora. And this is not just a one-way thing. No, it's really a dialogue. Of course, not
Mm.
all our appeals could happen, but as you know, the business sector also endorsed the bigger, the expanded CITIRA packages, the reduction in corporate income tax, the create measures. So there are a lot of dialogues also happening, Sito, but I guess I'm really more on the business sector. So I don't know how the others are
No, that helps a lot, Sharisa, because we need to know because I, for one, I'm in media. We're trying to reach out to government. There are some people in government who are really responsive. Like I said, DTI, agriculture, the PNP. They respond and they share information. But there are some departments that we can just kiss their behind because they don't have time for us. But it's good to know that Secretary Dominguez is more engaged than usual. I think he has become more visible than usual. Of course, Ben Jokno of the BSP has always been active, and Carl Chua always accessible for most of the time. So that's good. Now, I'm going to have to end it there, Sharisa, but please,
thank
if there are any new developments, statements, or movements on the ground as far as the business is concerned, a business sector, please let us know.
okay. And thank you, Sito. We should continue to be engaged. Salamat.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Please stay strong, stay healthy, stay safe, and God bless you.
You too. Take care.
Okay. That's Sherisa Nuesa, Chairperson, Judicial Reform Initiative. And that's, well, better late than never, as they say, because you don't always hear the business sector, especially a couple of business chambers, the American Chamber of Commerce, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, the Management Association, etc., etc. You don't normally hear them speak out on something that could be sensitive, politically sensitive. But in this case, they were speaking out in particular, belated. Kasi hindi naman po nila kasalanan yan. They released the statement in a matter of days. However, that statement must have gotten lost in all the other big stories that came out. But in any case, they spoke out against the situation that involved Brigadier General de Bolsinas. And I, for one, did not make comments on that, believing that the president will take action. He did take action. It wasn't what we expected, but we're still hopeful because according to General Bernard Banach of the PNP and the chief PNP himself, that charges or a complaint has been filed and it's now up to the court. Now, nothing personal with the Bolsinas, but unfortunately, while he may have been a victim of circumstance, he suffered a error in judgment, so that's under the water. But in any case, we will go for a quick gap and we will go to other stories in the morning. Please stay tuned and stay with us. Okay, you're back here on Agenda. I'm Cito Beltran, and you are watching us via Signal TV, channels 8 and 250, as well as the One News Facebook platform, and of course, YouTube. And allow me to show you this inside story from the Philippine Star. It says there, Philippine targets higher spending tourists. Now, this is apparently one of the strategies of the DOT, Department of Tourism. There is also this thing about inbound tourism profits plunge. Revenues fall by 61%. Okay, so let's pick up on those stories. Let's bring in Mr. Cesar Cruz, President, Philippine Tour Operators Association, Incorporated. Mr. Cruz, good morning to you, sir. Okay, I think your microphone is on mute. Please check your microphone. It might be on mute. Okay. Are we there? Can we try? Nope. We don't have the audio from Mr. Cruz. Well, not to worry. We will keep trying. As you know, Agenda believes in if you fail at first, try and try, but of course not until you die. In any case, I have a personal interest in tourism, not because I have a business in tourism. I used to be in tourism. I used to help put up resorts in northern Palawan, one of which was originally called Club Paradise, and it is now called I forgot what it's called now. It's part of a big chain now. I forgot the name of that. And again, I'll remember that. That's what happens as you get older. In any case, then we put up another bed and breakfast, also in the same area. And I went through the struggle of tourism, particularly at a time when particularly in a time when, if you remember, there were those kidnappings in Palawan, where a big name in construction was kidnapped in one of those resorts, and that sort of just killed off all our foreign tourists, and many resorts didn't know what to do. At that time, I was helping in the area, and I was actually running that bed and breakfast, and we had the choice: close the business, shut down, or find some strategy that would help us work. And we opted to focus on local tourism. We said we've never been really one of those places that the international jet setter high spenders go to. We're more down to earth, more of your organic native tourism, but that's what we did. We essentially shifted to the local market. We focused on the local market, connected with travel groups in the local market, and we survived. But so that's why when this story came out that the DOT would be targeting high spenders, I kind of wonder if they're targeting high rollers, the casino players, etc. What sort of high spenders will be coming out in the age of COVID-19? Let's go back to Cesar Cruz. Let's see if his connection is okay this time. Cesar, good morning. Okay, I don't seem to be getting you as of yet. You're still on mute. Check your computer, amigo. There might be that icon, mute. Okay, still not working. Okay, in any case, we will try to reconnect to Cesar. As I was saying, there is this question in my mind, and unfortunately, we weren't able to line up any member of the Department of Tourism or official, and they're always accessible. In any case, our fault, because I just saw the story today, and it says, that they're going to target high spenders. Now, I'm not questioning their sanity. I'm not questioning their tactics. I'm just wondering if a high spender or big spender or moneyed tourist would consider going to Asia, given the reality that COVID-19 first erupted in Asia. In fact, there are a lot of expats in Manila, especially families that are leaving the Philippines because of the COVID concerns. Not that we have such a big outbreak, but concerns about hospitals' ability to care for COVID-19 patients. Now, one of the big factors is, if we get sick, will the hospitals be able to accept us? Will the hospitals be able to care for us? And so a number of our friends who are foreigners have left. Some even left before the lockdown and said, I'm out of here. I'm going to China, back to China, because we have better healthcare there. And I said, but that's where coronavirus started. And that friend said, well, I'm not going to Wuhan, I'm going to Beijing. So that just tells you, if the foreigners in the Philippines are getting out of the Philippines, can we actually bring in the foreigners and the so-called high spenders? But we will put that aside for now. Let's go to our other interviewees until we can get Cesar. Let's go first to the president of the National Union of People's Lawyers because they have understandably opposed this anti-terror bill. Let's speak with Attorney Edre Olalia. Good morning, sir.
Hi, good morning, Sito. I owe you an apology for not taking your invitations for a long time.
No problem. Just wanted to check. I suppose you guys are so busy because of this newly minted anti-terror bill. What is your reaction and what are your major concerns about the bill, Edre?
Yes, talagang busy eh. In the time of pandemic, iba yung naasikaso ng gobyerno natin eh. Anyway, essentially, it's anti-civil liberties. And then it expands state power and gives a very small group of non-judicial, unelected public officers unbridled discretion to designate individuals or groups as so-called terrorists. And in the first place, the definition of terrorism is very broad and vague, such that it either punishes or if it does not punish any legitimate activity like freedom of speech and association, it may discourage. As a matter of fact, it can discourage based on experience. We have seen that during the quarantine period until now, where ordinary citizens and journalists, for that matter, were held to court or were harassed, invited, so-called, to explain certain posts and certain statements. So it's really very dangerous, and that's our beef about this bill. Not that we're saying that terrorism must not be addressed with all the necessary mechanisms. We're just saying that along the way, you should ensure that the many, you, me, and everybody else who are not terrorists, our rights must be protected because in the long run, it's going to affect our democratic rights and our security, our privacy. So that's basically our beef about it.
Okay, Edre, I'm the sort of fellow who likes to look into the future. I guess because I have this executive mentality or management mentality. I'm not
Right.
going to wait for the problem to pop up before I try to figure out the solutions. Now, in connection with this terror bill, what do you think is a possible reason that Malacanang is pushing or pushed it as urgent, certified it as an urgent bill? How could Malacanang or any administration for that matter, subsequent to the Duterte administration, benefit from this bill?
Well, it's the concentration of political power without any sufficient safeguards. They want to do things in the fast or shortcut way, and they want to dismiss certain rights, which they view as hindrances to their agenda. Aside from the fact that not only in the Philippines, all over the world, there are a lot of countries that take advantage, wittingly or unwittingly, the pandemic, the emergency situation, either to extend political power, to expand political power, or to divert attention from any inadequacy or inefficiency or incompetence in addressing the pandemic. In the future, I think, well, it's recognized, of course, that terrorism still exists. But what we're saying is that you do the right things in the right way, at the right time, with the right persons. How could you possibly accept the fact that a nine-member council can unilaterally declare you as a terrorist without any judicial standard? And then you can get arrested and detained for more than 2 weeks, extendable for another 10 days, which is even beyond the allowable period in the 1987 Constitution when there is martial law and if habeas corpus is suspended, because it's not automatic when there's martial law. So in that sense, this is even worse than the provisions in the 1987 Constitution, where the privilege to not to be, or the right rather, not to be detained without charges is stipulated. So yun ang nakikita namin kasi consistent naman sa sinasabi ni Presidente all along sa mga midnight press conferences nagtataka nga kami ano relationship nung sinasabi niyang terrorist act doon sa pagsugpo ng pandemic no? Parang ang layo So we can only divine, no, what their motivations are, but we can measure what is before us, no. We can argue well-meaning ba o talagang diabolical ba. Pero on its face, tingnan natin, ano ba talaga to? Ito ba makakabuti in the long run? Mananagasa ba to ng karapatan? Will it discourage or stifle or worse, punish legitimate organizations, legitimate criticism, even opinions that are not consistent with the official line? Yan ang problema natin dito.
Edre, I'm going to quote what many lawyers and many law professors say: never go to court and ask a question, an answer of which you do not know.
Correct.
So you're the lawyer in the room. Now, may I ask you to answer those very questions that you
Okay.
raised?
As much as I can.
Makakatulong ba ito, etc., etc.?
Okay. So what's the question? I didn't get it. I'm sorry, Chito.
No, the questions that you yourself post, is this going
Yeah.
to be beneficial in the long term? Is this really a threat? You were raising those points to ponder or consider. What is your professional assessment based on your experience? Kasi kayo mga OLALIA, kilalang-kilala na. You have always been there in the battle for civil liberties, for civil rights, etc.
No. It's not going to answer the problem of terrorism. Along the way, it's going to worsen things because a lot of people are going to be discontented, are going to be harassed, and they're going to be very angry. Right now, people are angry. You see that every day, every night in the news. People who can't go to work, people who are hungry, people are expressing their discontent. You can see that. Now, you give them something else that would worsen the situation. So it doesn't answer the question. Instead of generating support, no, in the fight against terrorism, you deflect the approach to the critical question of what about our rights, no? So kaysa tama yan, dapat ganito ang gawin ng gobyerno natin kasi talagang ina-attacking mga civilian, mga terrorist. Hindi eh. So hindi siya nasasagot, and then you don't get the support of the citizenry. Tapos nagkakaroon pa ng disgusto, and then na-undermine pa yung democratic institutions. Kasi inaagawan mo yung power ng mga huwes na mag-issue ng mga warrants of arrest, no, sa isang very small group of executive officials. Ang kailangan diyan, we have been saying this all along. Labanan natin terrorismo, the real terrorists, all right? Secondly, how do you do that? Kasi ang dami na nating laws, may safeguards daw. Biro naman, dami safeguards, may Anti-Torture Act, may Anti-Disappearance Act, may Miranda rights sa Constitution, meron party tayo sa 11 of the 12 International Conventions on Human Rights, meron pang ang karil na tinatawag, yung bilateral agreement. Bakit tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung violations? Nakikita naman natin, wala napaparusahan. So, ang sinasabi namin, professional, competent, consistent, scientific investigation, prosecution, and conviction of the real terrorists without any political consideration. Without, ang tawag namin dito, yung weaponization of the law. Don't weaponize the law against your opponents, whether perceived or real, no? Ang problema dyan, nakita naman natin yung sedition charges na final kung kani-kanino. Kami mismo, Sito, naalala mo last year, sinama kami sa Matrix eh. You remember
Yes.
that Matrix? Without any basis at all. They got our brochure, 28 of the officers, and then they copy-pasted all our names there and they connected us to a web of a ridiculous conspiracy, which has no basis at all. So it didn't fly because it has no basis at all. But at the same time, we are being stigmatized. Tingnan mo sa Quezon City ngayon, tingnan mo sa mga postes, sa mga bus stops. Ang daming posters, pati NUPL. So it deflects the attention of the public doon sa talagang, sino ba talagang kalaban natin, di ba? So imbes na yung oras, yung rekurso, yung determinasyon na focus natin at lalo natin ang tawag dito na nagiging mature ang ating democratic processes. Hindi, umaatras tayo eh. So, bakit nung Human Security Act matindi na nga yun in 2007 pero hindi pa rin naalo yung maute. 'Di ba? Hindi kasi problema yung batas. Ang problema yung nabanggit ko na kanina.
Okay. Now, yung sinasabi mong 9-man committee or not elected and not by, essentially you're saying they're not competent, they're not elected, their public political appointees, but they will sit on that committee. I mean, do you see this as the process of evolution towards a junta?
Well, de facto, yes, because even at the present time, the interagency task force, you can see the composition is made up of either active or retired military officers. So de facto, which means to say that in practice, you can see where they're coming from. What is their framework? What kind of mindset do they have? So this anti-terrorism council, although there are civilian officials there, including the executive secretary and justice secretary, the military-minded people are there, the ND, the ALG, and all the rest of the security officials. So in that sense, no, under those under those premises, yes, in fact, we can see a more militarist approach to this problem.
Now, who are you more worried about? Because there is a tendency to always target the military, single out military people. But time and again, history has taught us that while the military or ex-military were implementers of such activities, it was actually private business interests that were behind all of this. Dito ba sa senaryo na ito ng anti-terror bill, itong mga nangyayari sa ating bansa, do you see a strong hand of a certain business interest behind it all?
Well, that's an interesting question. To be candid, I haven't really thought about it, no? But it's something to ponder on because economic interests dictate political policies. You know that. So it's not far-fetched. But I say with a degree of certainty because I don't have the facts before me. But it's entirely possible that there are economic interests that either support, acquiesce, or condone these kinds of approaches. No. So that is my take on that. It's not entirely far-fetched that certain invincible economic forces are behind this. But I can't say that with certainty, to be very honest.
Okay, so my last question, Edre, is there any way of resolving this? Kasi nilabas na ng Congress, nilabas na ng Senate, pipirmahan na ni Presidente. If I follow your line that it is an imperfect, unnecessary bill or law, what recourse do people like you and the Filipinos have to make sure this does not see the light of day or is challenged?
Well, in the immediate, we can continue educating people, informing them what the facts are, what is in the law, and what are the possible potential consequences based on experience, not based on speculation, because there are 1,000 possibilities. But based on experience, based on historical record, we can inform them how their rights are going to be threatened. You can go out in the streets, go out in social media. But in the concrete, as lawyers, we have to wait because of certain legal requirements for an actual case before we can question its constitutionality in court. There must be first a violation. In other words, there must be a victim or there must be an arrest or detention or a prescription. Because otherwise, the case is just going to be dismissed for prematurity. But in the meantime, we can continue educating public and then generating
Wait a minute.
all the support.
Edre,
Yes,
wait a minute, because I was speaking with Nery Colmenares and he pointed out that it's unconstitutional.
Correct.
So
Yes,
on
correct.
that basis, can't you just take that to the Supreme Court and say this law is void because it is unconstitutional?
Yes, but there is a procedural requirement, Sito, which happened in 2007 when we questioned the Human Security Act. It was dismissed unanimously by the Supreme Court because at that time, there was no one arrested yet, nor detained, nor proscribed. So the court says, well, you may be right or may be wrong, but we cannot decide on something that is not yet before us. So there's no question it's unconstitutional. It's patently unconstitutional on several grounds. It's void on several grounds. The question is, can we hurdle the procedural requirement of prematurity or ripeness? We call that in legal parlance. Because while we may invoke that this may be an exception because of the transcendental importance of the issue, at that time in 2007, the court didn't see it our way. Now, we don't know, especially now with the composition of the Supreme Court, whether they're going to depart from that point of view. So we want to be very certain because we don't want to file a case that's going to validate this problem.
Okay, well, unfortunately, every change requires a sacrificial lamb, and I sure as hell don't want to be that one. In any
Yes,
case, thank you, Edre Olalia. Thank you
mm.
very much, and please stay safe, stay strong, and stay healthy, and God bless you.
God bless you too, and keep safe and strong and angry.
Okay, thank you. And that's Attorney Edre Olalia, President of the National Union of People's Lawyers. I I love the way he put it. Unfortunately, I am trying to restrain myself from getting angry because I don't think my doctor, Dr. Marlo Mendoza of the Philippine Heart Center, is going to be pleased with it. Neither will my pastors who oversee the way I carry myself. Let's go for another shot with our previous guest, Cesar Cruz of the Philippine Tourism Operators Association. There you go. I can hear you already. Cesar, good
Hi,
morning to
very
you.
good. Good morning again. Mabuhay, Sito.
Okay, Cesar, I was in the intro earlier, I was saying that the Department of Tourism, one of their, it seems one of their plans is to target high spending or big spenders for tourists. Now, what's your reaction to that?
Well, obviously, for the foreign tourists or even the domestic tourists, this will be could be one of the targets because of the social distancing. Because most of the capacity, of our tourism enterprises, from the hotels to the destination itself, would require a lot of social distancing. So even the capacity would be limited to like 50%. So, but in all practical uh, looking in all practicality, looking at it, this will be very difficult to be very choosy at this point,
Mhm.
because right now at this present time, as we are talking, we still have a problem on how to bounce back the tourism industry in the Philippines. There are still a lot of challenges ahead of us. Even in its official opening by September for the tourism enterprises.
Now, what are the suggestions or concerns, as the case may be, of your association in terms of opening tourism? Because I know there are thousands, if not millions, of Filipinos who want to travel, who want to hit the beach, who want to go to their favorite tourist getaway.
Yes, Sito. Basically, the initial instinct would be to really tap the domestic traveler. But there are a lot of challenges even with the domestic traveler. Number one, are the destinations willing to open by June? As of now, some of the LGUs have already expressed their apprehension in opening now. Even they can be allowed to, since they're already under the GCQ.
GCQ.
But the problem is that the LGUs are also very cautious right now, because a single incident again of having some visitors being tested positive, and again now the possibility of spreading it in their destination is still there. So right now the LGUs are still very busy trying to put all the safety protocols from the airport to the accommodation with the help of the Department of Tourism. The safety standards are still being put in place. This is not an easy feat, no? It requires a certain additional infrastructure, of course, additional expenses on the part of the tourism enterprises and on the part of the LGU. Easily, like Bohol, they said that they can only be more or less comfortable in opening by July. Uh, some destinations would even not opt to open by September. There's another challenge that you can see this in the domestic airlines. Even, for example, the domestic airlines have already announced the opening, the resumption of their domestic flights. But the problem is there's still some LGUs who do not want to open up. So, for example, hopefully by tomorrow, some of these flights would already resume. Uh, Although Cebu Pacific on a limited route, they already operated. But still, the problem really is this. You have a destination who doesn't want to open yet. You have an airline who's willing to fly there, and it's the same thing that you may have already the traveler who would like to go around and travel again outside of their to get out of their home. But these are the challenges still to bounce back to the industry.
But
Uh,
Cesar,
yeah.
let me just ask this question. Do you I mean, we can appreciate and understand the apprehension and the concern of local government officials. I mean, we get that. I think no Filipino would have stayed confined in their homes for what, 75 plus days if we don't get that. But is it possible that we have reached this level where local government officials don't want to take the responsibility or are afraid of being blamed if there is a resurgence of COVID-19 cases? Kumbaga, parang napraning na ang mga local government officials kasi baka balikan sila ng national government or masisisi sila. Because, I mean, you were correct. Local governments are playing safe. But for how long can we play safe? I mean, we gotta move at one point or another.
Yeah, precisely. That's the point, Sito. No? One way or another, you have the DILG, and this happened already at the onset of this particular pandemic crisis. No, everything is actually within the responsibility of the LGU to make sure that the destination are safe. And if there's an increase of COVID patients in the area, basically it falls down to the lap of the LGU because they have not done the proper protocol, etc. But what we're trying to do now, Sito, is that on our part, because we still have to do some convincing also to our travelers that it's already safe for them to go to these places of interest for their travel, no? But this still requires a lot of changing the mindset of the travelers. And one way of doing this is also to convince them that it's already safe. So we do not, of course, we would rather have these destinations being opened up now. But I guess on a positive note, we can look at it by, well, we're doing it slowly, but making sure that we are also trying to condition the mind now of our travelers out there that, okay, perhaps not today, but in the next 1 month or 2 months, because we are ready to convince them that it's safe to travel, the land transportation, the airline safety protocols from the airport to the destinations are already in place. I think it's only at this time that we can really have even the domestic travelers start to travel again.
Okay, Cesar, because you mentioned that Bohol won't open or wants to open only by July, I got the feedback from somebody from Bohol and somebody very authoritative, but I can't tell you who kasi wala akong permission na magsabi ng pangalan niya, baka mapagalitan na naman ako. But he said, not even July. We will not open until PCR labs are ready. So clearly, their priority is to make sure that there are laboratories in place so that they can do testing, whether it's rapid, well, in that case, PCR, hindi lang rapid testing. Here's another feedback. Yes, napraning na. Nobody wants to be blamed. We need to advocate to our people and the DILG. We must be allowed flexibilities, especially when we are COVID-free. Give us flexibilities, please. So it's good that we're having this conversation, and I love it when our viewers confirm, because that last message was from a local government official, and it is an admission that they're, sorry to say, sorry, forgive my French, they're scared shitless. They don't want the mortalities, they don't want the casualties, they don't want the outbreak, but they also don't want Malacanang on their necks. So I suppose it would now be up to PhilToa, Parang tennis association na kayo. Okay. Yung PhilToa Tourism
Tour
Association
operators, yeah.
to start lobbying for this, Cesar, because I support you. I understand, how you guys feel. I mean, I was in tourism before, and the thought that you will now see millions and millions of pesos scramble, rock before you, and all your employees moving out of an island or a beach or a place kasi wala nang kabuhayan, it's just depressing.
It's a very, very difficult balancing act on the part of the LGUs and on the part also of the private sector. Even the Department of Tourism through the Secretary Berna, she was really trying to push for destinations to open, but at the end of the day, you just realize really the responsibility and the mindset now also of the LGUs to open up that quickly without really putting everything in place. It's a very, very difficult balancing act because while you are close as a destination for tourism, you have also a lot of people and stakeholders, workers in the industry who are also being jobless now.
Yeah, but Cesar,
Non-operational of these tourism enterprises is actually causing already a big blow. Marco Polo Hotel in Davao is already shutting down.
yeah,
There are already some hotels who are shutting down.
yeah. Now, Cesar, here's the question, because I know that this government, to be fair, is responsive when they see that there is a big number of people affected, and when they see that there is a logical proposal or proposition before them. That much I will say about this government. Now, the question is, are you going to wait until things take a turn for the worse, or are you going to stand up and be heard? Because kaming mga senior citizens, or I suppose looking at your hair, tayong mga senior citizens, nagsalita tayo eh, 'di ba? We expressed our problem with the confinement to quarters. We expressed that many of us don't have people to take care of us. We are independent, productive people, and we express that many of us are running corporations. So the government basically, okay, medyo parang Indian giver, yes, no, confused pa rin ang IATF, but more or less they've now agreed, if you have a company ID, you are a productive, employed individual running a company, go, you can go out. Otherwise, essentials lang. But it's no longer confined to quarters in isolation. Now, sorry for the long intro. Kayo sa PhilToa, hihintayin pa ba ninyo na talagang inaanay na yung mga building nyo bago kayo tumayo at magsabing sa secretary ng DILG or to the president, Mr. President, tulungan nyo na kami. We are employing. How many people are you employing, by the way?
In my company, in the
No,
tourism
no.
sector,
In the sector.
tourism sector, you estimate it's about 6 million direct and indirect employees of the tourism industry.
Eh, yung dine-in restaurant lang, 400,000 lang daw eh. Biglang pinapayagan na ng dine-in eh. So, I mean, what's the difference between dine-in and tourism? I mean, I'm not asking for the complete opening, but I think I can't be your champion. You have to be your own champions. You have to put up your own declaration.
Well, on the part of the association, PhilToa, since most of our members are actually tour operators and travel agencies, with also the accommodation sector, we are not really waiting until we have been raising our voice, our concern regarding this. We have done some, so we have some plans already at hand without waiting for September. For example, slowly when these destinations are opening up already, like for example, in the area of Luzon, Batangas, siguro kung medyo problematic pa yung mga access means like flying, etc. We can try also the nearby. And then we in the association, what we do is we will try to set the example to the other LGUs. Okay, don't worry, because we are the responsible tour operators, travel agencies. We are also imposing the safety protocols in conducting our tours. So meaning to say that even perhaps, hopefully, the LGU, by doing this, by showing them that the tour operators, the travel agencies, the accommodation sector, and all the airports, all the access and the land transportations are already setting up the safety protocols, perhaps yung worry nila ay maiibsan ng konti, and eventually they will open up, no? Through the Department of Tourism, and the Department of Tourism has been very, very supportive on this one. They've already, the Secretary Bernas already voiced out their concerns, even to the LGUs, because we are also voicing out our concerns through the Secretary of, through the Department of Tourism, and she has been very, very active also in dealing with the, in trying to persuade the.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, Cesar, I know a lot of stuff is going on the ground, but I think the consolidated one solid statement is what is need to be made, and also a real program based on because right now we're being told pwede naman within the province safe yan. It's the gradual thing, and there has to be a schedule and there has to be parameters, because right now parang hintayan pag may pumalag, may magalit, okay, let's pay attention to them. But it's also unfair to expect the IATF and the government to write down and roll out a program if you in the sector, and I'm not blaming you kasi problema rin to ng mga ibang sectors, na you want something but you're not putting what you want down in paper and in a program. I mean, that's the general impression. In any case, I gotta let you go, Cesar. I've taken up too much of your time. Pero just so you know, okay, the gentleman who was making comments on the side while you and I were talking was none other than Governor Art Yap of Bohol. And he's saying, okay, we want to open up, but we must cross two thresholds. Convincing people it is safe to travel, and two, we must convince locals that it is now safe to open up. There must be GCQ to GCQ protocols that allow locals to deal with their local LGU counterparts. This will be the same protocols when we deal with our international counterparts when we do travel bubbles or travel corridors. Allow us to implement local rules in harmony with our counterparts. So I guess
That's a magic word, Chito, travel bubbles.
okay, so then yun na. Sinabi ko na sa inyo kasi ako bilib ako diyan kay Art Yap, nag-iisip Nag-iisip, and it is not just for his constituency, he is also considerate of the other constituencies. Okay, so anyway, thank you very much, Cesar, and I'm sure you and I are going to have more of these conversations on agenda, God willing, and if we have enough viewership to sustain us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sito. Thank you for having me.
Okay, that's Cesar Cruz, the president of the Philippine Tour Operators Association. And thank you also, Governor Art Yap, because I think most Filipinos are on the same page. We will take care. We will wear masks. We will socially distance. We will be very careful. Ayaw po naming mamatay. We would be, especially kaming mga senior citizen. But we need to get out already. We're going nuts. And I'm sure even Cito Beltran, you are noticing, is becoming more cantankerous. I admit it. Try being in under confinement for 75 days. The longest I've been under this sort of confinement was when I broke my spine and was bedridden for 75 days. Not more, for 90 days. And you know what happened on the third month? They had to handcuff me to the bed because talagang gusto ko nang lumabas, nasisira na ang ulo ko. In any case, let's go to our next guest na hindi naman nasisira ang ulo niya pero baka makalbo siya kakabunot ng buhok sa ulo niya. He is a good friend. There you go, good-looking Congressman Rufy Biazon. Good morning to you. Nakapag-ahit ka na pala o pinagbubunot mo yan doon lumabas yung version ng anti-terror bill. Good morning to you, bro.
Good morning, Cito, and sa mga viewers, good morning din.
Okay. Nakapag-ahit na. Well, take it from me. You look better without the beard. You look younger. In any case, my team was telling me na you refused to endorse the final version of the anti-terror bill because as the principal author, what came out was not your work.
Well, Sito, ang nangyari kasi dyan, there was a decision by the majority in the House that we would be adopting the Senate version, the one that was approved by the Senate. Ako personally, as an author, I've been working on this since the 17th Congress. It's been my advocacy since 2001 during my first term as congressman, and I'm not changing my stand on my advocacy. But when we took up the bill, nung sinabi at the committee level, when it was said that we would be taking up the Senate version and bringing it to the plenary, I was thinking there's a possibility that when it comes to the plenary, in the course of the debates, there would be a possibility that we would be able to introduce some amendments. Because I believe that inputs from the members of the House, which has a more diverse background than the Senate, would really put the bill under strict scrutiny. And as a legislator, I've always believed that the proposals that we process in the House of Representatives should be one that is palatable to at least a majority of those who will decide on the bill. Now, in the course of the sponsorship where I defended the bill, one of the interpellators asked me if I was willing to do some amendments. Now, in my mind, I was thinking of what was the agreement with the majority that we will be adopting the Senate version. But my heart was saying that there's room for inputs from members of the House. So my reply was yes, I'm willing to accept some amendments. And in fact, as I was browsing over the Senate version and listening to the deliberations and answering questions, I myself had seen one amendment at least that we could do to improve the bill and ensure that there would be no misinterpretation or misapplication of that provision. But amendments were not entertained, and then there was approval on second reading. I was contemplating then. And then we came to the third reading, which is the approval of the third reading, which is a nominal voting votation. So each individual legislator would have a chance to say their vote and explain it if they wanted to. So I was contemplating all the way to the end. So as an individual author, I felt that I cannot, how do you say this? I can take the heat if I know that it is the work of my hands. But if I will take the heat on something that I felt that could still be improved, then I would have to make a decision. So that was the decision I made in the end, to not support the bill and in fact request that my authorship would be withdrawn. It's not a change of heart as far as the advocacy is concerned. I still believe that we need to have a better anti-terrorism bill. But in this particular case, it's an individual conscious decision based on the principle of the belief that we could still have some improvement. Because the problem is if we introduce at least even if just one amendment, it would have to go down to a bicameral conference, which was, I think, was not part of the legislative plan.
Okay, so would it be correct for me to say that effectively the new anti-terror bill was not written by the House of Representatives, but by the Senate?
Well, the House adopted the Senate version of course, by going through the process in the House can claim authorship as well. But that version was the product of the deliberations in the Senate. Now, not to put down the Senate, of course, the Senate is a co-equal body and an esteemed institution. But the difference between the Senate and the House is that in the House, where we have around 300 congressmen, district representatives, party list representatives, we have a huge diversity of views and ideas. And we have the Makabayan Bloc, who is expected, of course, to really scrutinize intensely the bill. And I think in a democracy, that's essential, especially in legislation, that we are able to really comb through legislation. When I was chair of the technical working group on the anti-terror bill in the 17th Congress, I gave leeway to the opposition to really air their side, to invite resource persons that they wanted to and be heard. Because as a proponent of the bill, what I wanted was a product that had the least criticism, least controversy, as much as we can, so that once we implement it, there's less problems.
Okay, now I give that to you, and congratulations for your integrity. You will not sign on anything that is not your creation, or you cannot legitimately call yours. Now, as far as the legislative process, I will give it to the Congress that perhaps the Senate, which from time to time has shown its independence, is just as worthy and capable of crafting a decent and legitimate law. But now there are allegations by certain sectors that the law itself, or the bill, until it's signed by President Duterte, it remains a bill. The bill is defective and unconstitutional. What are your concerns, or what is your concern regarding this particular bill?
Yes, I had wanted, I was of the belief that there was a provision that could be improved, specifically on the provision with regard to the designation of terrorists. As worded, the bill gives the ATC, or it can be interpreted that the ATC is going to exercise a power to determine probable cause. But it wasn't the intention. Well, it's not our intention as authors. And when I clarified with the Anti-Terrorism Council, it was not the intention for the ATC to be the one to make a determination of probable cause. The way it was worded to us, it is interpreted as that the ATC is recognizing the existing judicial process that we have, where the public prosecutor is the one who makes the determination of probable cause, the executive determination of probable cause. But the way it was worded, it could also be interpreted in another way, that the ATC is the one making the determination of probable cause. So, while pwede na pumasa, sabi ka nga sa ganyan, pero pwede pang i-refine para matiyak na mas maigi. So, specifically, ang nasa isip ko noon was to insert into that provision a phrase that the determination of probable cause by the public prosecutor or the court would be the trigger for the designation of terrorist. So, yun nga lang, kasi kahit na isang amendment na ipasok mo, it will have to go to a BICAM. So, and like I said, the legislative game plan was for a faster process of bringing it into.
Why the emphasis on speed and haste, given the fact that this is a law that will be in place for at least a decade, and given the fact that, I mean, we are not under attack. We have not been targeted in the same manner that other countries have been targeted. You kind of wonder, bakit minamadali kung may depekto or may pagkukulang yung batas?
Well, first off, the threat is a continuing threat. The threat is always there. We don't know when terrorists will attack because stealth is their tool of carrying out their actions. So there is a threat. Better that we have an improved anti-terror bill than waiting for the next attack. Second, I was not able to go into this deeper, but there's supposed to be a deadline by the Financial Action Task Force wherein our status would be downgraded. It has something to do with the trustworthiness of the financial system of a country.
Yes.
If it's being used in terrorist financing, if our financial system is being used as a terrorist financing, we are downgraded by some category. I'm not much into that. But
Yeah.
that was one of the compelling reasons to have the bill passed into law. Because if I remember correctly, the deadline was October. We should have had a working bill by October of this year. So even before the COVID pandemic, the schedule of the anti-terrorism bill was supposed to be, the target was to have it approved during this time before we adjourn CNDA.
Well,
Unfortunately, yes.
yeah, Rofi, was because that thing you're referring to, it is I think requirement of financial institutions, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, etc., regarding terrorist funding and terrorist financing. Now, what puzzles me is you would think that if they were just concerned about terrorist funding and financing, Congress as a whole could have crafted a law addressing that particular gap or that problem. But why a total, why come up with a aircraft carrier when all you needed to do was to come up with a patrol boat or something? I'm sorry about the analogy, pero parang overkill itong anti-terror bill to address the demand of the financial institutions.
Actually, it's just one aspect that we needed to upgrade. No? Just going into that aspect of the terrorist financing. Meron na tayo nung anti-terrorist financing law, which was passed several years after the Human Security Act. Doon sa law natin na yun, it speaks of yung designated terrorists. Now, dito papasok yung amendment na sinasabi ko kanina. Yung designation of terrorists was not in that portion of the Human Security Act.
Mm-hmm.
So kailangan yung eksaktong problem na yun, we had to address it. And it is one of the things that the present bill addressed with that provision that I wanted to have an amendment to. Kasi doon, yung term na designation was used in that terrorist financing law that we have. Designation is a term used not just in the country but everywhere else. So it's a particular category of suspected terrorists. So kailangan ipasok natin sa batas yun. Kaya natin kinailangan itong bagong batas natin para ipasok yun. But that's just one aspect. Meron pa ibang aspects ng Human Security Act na kailangan baguhin. Imagine, 2007 pa yung Human Security
Well,
Act.
yeah, well, that's clearly been discussed at length, and at the end of the day, I'm sorry, we're gone over time, but at the end of the day, safe to say the Senate version stays. It is submitted to the President, and until and at such a time when a complaint is filed, only then can you take this to the Supreme Court or to the chamber for amendments, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be a law.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Rufi, and I will try my best to put you longer on the program in the future, and we hope that you will continue to shave and look good and look young. Okay. Thank you very much. Stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, and God bless you, bro.
Thank you. God bless.
Okay, that's Congressman Rufi Biazon of the city of Muntinlupa. He was originally the author for the new anti-terror bill, but apparently he withdrew his authorship and signature because the bill that was submitted to the president to become a law was the Senate version. So, being a Christian, I know Rufi personally. He will not take credit that is not his, and I think it is also prudent not to take risk or undertake liability for something that you should not be responsible for. In any case, thank you very much. We're totally over time this morning. Sorry to management. Please stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy. God bless all of you. And thank you, dear God, for giving us good connectivity this morning. I'm Cito Beltran, and that's today's agenda.